Hi everyone, my name's Matt, and it's no secret that modern consoles offer better gaming performance than similarly priced new PCs, but what if you're willing to buy used parts? Could you build something that performs as well or even better than a console? Well, that's the question I'm trying to answer in today's video. Recently, I challenged myself to build a PC for $500 that could perform on par or better than a PS5 or Xbox Series X. I wanted to find bargains, but also ensure this build would be somewhat repeatable. It definitely took some time and research to find all the parts, but I'm happy with the end result and excited to show you how it turned out. Also, I know this isn't a perfect comparison, but it's just for fun, and we'll discuss the pros and cons of a PC like this and a console like the PS5 towards the end of the video. So let's go ahead and talk about all the components I got for this used parts console killer build. For the CPU, I considered both AMD and Intel. There were good options from 10th to 12th gen Core i CPUs, as well as 3rd and 5th gen Ryzen CPUs. With that being said, it seems like it's easier to find a good deal on an AM4 motherboard, so I decided to go the Ryzen route. After looking through different options, I ended up finding a Ryzen 5 5500 for $65 with free shipping that also included a cooler. This was a solid deal, but I'd normally recommend just going for a Ryzen 5 3600 as it should perform very similarly and can be regularly found for around $55 on sites like AliExpress without a cooler. The Ryzen 5 5500 is a 6-core 12-thread CPU that released over 2 years ago and is considered a very solid budget gaming processor. With that being said, it's also very solid for stuff like streaming and light video editing. It also being on the AM4 platform means there's a solid upgrade path to something like a 5800X3D or even the newly released 5700X3D, both of which would be great upgrades down the line. For the cooler, I'm using what came with the CPU I purchased, which is a very generic looking all aluminum heatsink. It's nothing special, but it should cool the 5500 just fine. Not only does it have thermal paste already applied to the cooler itself, but the CPU cooler combo also came with a small tube of extra paste. The motherboard was one part that took a little while to find a good deal on, but after a few days of hunting, I found this Gigabyte A520M DS3H Wi-Fi on eBay for $35 with free shipping. This board has 4 DIMM slots, decent PCIe expansion, and an NVMe M.2 slot. The back panel I/O is adequate, and it's nice to see Wi-Fi included on board. That being said, for $35, I just got the motherboard. No I/O shield, no cables, and not even the AM4 backplate. However, I was able to snag an AM4 mounting kit off AliExpress for under $2 with free shipping since I ordered it with some other parts. If you don't want to hunt for deals, for around $10 more you can get this B450 board that'll come with an I/O shield and the mounting hardware. For RAM, I basically just looked for a 16GB kit of DDR4 memory with decent speeds. After watching some listings, I found this 2x8GB kit of ADATA DDR4 memory rated for 3000 MHz. It only cost me $19.28 with free shipping, so this was definitely a good deal as this type of kit is normally around $25 on sites like eBay. 16GB is plenty for modern gaming and even streaming. One benefit of a PC like this is its upgradability, and because the motherboard I chose has 4 DIMM slots, upgrading to 32GB in the future should be as easy as popping into more 8GB sticks. Just remember to go into BIOS and enable the XMP setting for max performance once your build is up and running. One thing also to note is this RAM came with one of the heatsinks bent, which isn't ideal but didn't hurt this RAM's function or performance at all. In terms of storage, I did make a minor compromise by going with a 512GB NVMe SSD in the form of the Silicon Power A60, which I got new for $35. This is an inexpensive NVMe drive, but for a gaming system like this, it should work great. The downside is that compared to something like a PS5, it has only around half the capacity, meaning you'll have to uninstall and reinstall games more frequently. That being said, the 1TB version is only around $20 more and would be a good idea if you have room for it in your budget. For the graphics card, I knew I wanted to put about half the budget towards the GPU, as this is the part that has the biggest impact on gaming performance. With half the budget being $250, there are 2 standout options in my opinion. The first is the AMD Radeon RX 6700 XT, which can easily be found for $250 on eBay and offers an impressive 12GB of video memory. The second option is the NVIDIA RTX 3070, which only has 8GB of video memory but offers NVIDIA exclusive features like DLSS and the NVENC encoder. They trade blows in a lot of games, but if all you care about is pure performance, I think the 6700 XT is the better pick, especially in the long run. With that being said, I still think the 3070 is a decent option, and because I've never had the chance to try one out, I decided to go for it in this build. The specific model I got is the Ventus 2X OC LHR version, which is definitely a lower end model, but it'll perform like pretty much any other 3070. This card features a dual fan design with an okay sized heatsink and a backplate that unfortunately is made of plastic. To power this system, I knew I needed at least a 450 watt power supply, since the estimated max power usage for these parts is around 375 watts. After looking for deals, I ended up finding two 450 watt 80 plus bronze rated EVGA 450 BRs for $60 with free shipping, so $30 each. I'll use one for this build and one for an upcoming $200 custom gaming PC, which believe it or not won't use a pre-built, so get excited for that. I probably should have waited and tried to find a unit with 500 watts or more, but this one should work fine. However, it probably would need to be replaced if any major upgrades were made to the system down the line. It's also a non-modular unit, but it is all black sleeve cables, and the excess cables can be neatly hidden away in the power supply basement of the case. Speaking of the case, if you're doing a used budget build, your best option is to find something super cheap locally. However, I didn't want to use any local deals for this build, and after a day or two of searching, I found this white Gamdias RGB case for only $42 with free shipping on Amazon. I've built in the black version before, and for $42, it's a solid deal. It comes with 3 RGB fans that can be easily controlled by a button at the top of the case. It has a side and front glass panel, a few dust filters, and overall looks really nice in my opinion. All in all, these parts cost me just under $480, which is good because it means I came in under the budget. The extra $20 could have been spent on a larger SSD, a higher wattage power supply, or even a slightly better CPU. Another option for that $20 could also be to go towards a keyboard and mouse combo, because unlike a console which includes a controller in the price, the original $500 budget was just for the PC itself. With that being said, I think this combination of hardware is solid for the price. I'm curious to hear what you would have chosen if you had this same $500 budget, so let me know in the comments below. Building this system was very simple and only took about 30 minutes, plus another 30 minutes to an hour to install the drivers and start downloading games. Speaking of games, let's talk about gaming benchmarks. I decided to test everything at 1440p. While this won't give as high of frame rates as 1080p, it will be closer to what consoles usually run at in terms of graphical fidelity. Let's start things off with Elden Ring. I tested this game at 1440p with the high preset and no ray tracing enabled. I loaded into one of the more performance intensive open areas and just ran around fighting enemies. While doing this, I was happy to see the system stayed at a locked 60 FPS the entire time, which both looked and felt very good in my opinion. The next game tested was Rainbow Six, which I tested at 1440p using the Ultra preset and by running the built-in benchmark. Doing this resulted in a 226 FPS average with 1% lows of 153. This is very solid performance, and being able to get those super high frame rates is definitely something a lot of people choose a PC over a console for. Next up is Cyberpunk 2077, which I also tested at 1440p with the Ultra preset and by running the built-in benchmark. Doing this resulted in a very solid 70 FPS average with 1% lows of 50. This is awesome in my opinion that this $500 PC can play a game like Cyberpunk at 1440p Ultra with 60 plus FPS. Moving on to the newest game, Black Myth Wukong. I don't own this game, but luckily there is a free benchmarking tool that anyone can download, and I tested at a few different setting configurations, but to get an average above 60 FPS, I had to run it at 1440p with the high preset and super resolution set to 75 using DLSS upscaling. So it's not running at native 1440p, but the performance and visuals are still very good in my opinion. Next up is Helldivers 2, which I tested at 1440p high settings and native resolution. Hopping into the starter mission that I always test on, I saw a 68 FPS average with 1% lows of 61. This is very good performance and also looked great. Borderlands 3 was tested next and is a good representative of an older AAA title. I tested this game at 1440p with the Ultra preset. Doing this resulted in a very solid 98 FPS average and 1% lows of 67, and because this was a fair amount above 60 FPS at 1440p, the system is probably capable of playing games like this at 4K with medium-ish settings. Finally, I decided to test an esports title that was PC exclusive for a while, but is released in the past few months on consoles, which is Valorant. I tested this at 1440p high settings, and by jumping into a deathmatch, doing this resulted in a 275 FPS average with 1% lows of 158, which again is very good performance. Overall, I was honestly surprised that this $500 PC could game so well at 1440p. While I don't own a PS5 or Xbox Series X to compare directly, from what I've seen in my research, this PC performs as well or better than those consoles in most of the games I tested. With that being said, there are still many reasons you might prefer a console like a PS5 over a PC like this one, or vice versa. First of all, choosing a console is the easier option. You pay $500, open the box, and can be gaming in about 15 minutes. Not only that, but because the console is new, you get a warranty and you won't have to worry about fixing it yourself if something goes wrong during the warranty period. Also, as I mentioned earlier, for that $500 you get a controller and built-in Wi-Fi, which isn't guaranteed on a PC at this price point. On the other hand, there are definitely advantages to going the PC route. Yes, building a PC like this takes substantially more time and effort between researching, part hunting, building the PC, installing the OS and drivers, and tweaking things like in-game settings. However, with the PC, you can run Windows for free unactivated and don't have to pay $80 a year to play online. You can also use this PC for much more than just gaming. You can perform general office tasks like writing documents and making spreadsheets, do content creation like video editing and music production, and run infinitely more applications than a console can. So the main pros of going with a console like the PS5 come down to ease of setup and use, great gaming performance for the price, and the all-in-one nature of a console. Going with a PC like this gives you far more options and general usability, but it comes at the cost of a more challenging setup. To match the PS5's performance, I had to buy used parts, whereas a $500 PS5 would be brand new. Obviously, this isn't the fairest comparison since it's new versus used. An equivalent used PS5 would cost around $350 or $400. If you'd like me to build a PC around that price point for a more apples to apples comparison, then let me know in the comments below. The whole point of this video was just to show that if you put in the time, effort, and are willing to buy used parts, you can 100% build a PC for the same price as a console that performs the same or better while giving you all the flexibility of a PC. I might also make a $500 new part build to see what kind of performance that would offer, which I think could be interesting. So yeah guys, I think it's time to wrap this video up. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And as always, this is Matt from Tech by Matt, signing out.